Indictment for murder, guilty. Indictment for murder, guilty.
Justice was done.
It gave a voice to Maggie and Paul Murdaugh, who were brutally mowed down and murdered. We can't bring them back, but we can bring them justice.
And he may be taken away.
And welcome back. We are taking you beyond the gavel. Convicted killer and disgraced attorney Alex Murdaugh is taking his fight for a new trial to South Carolina's highest court this week. Murdaugh was found guilty in 2023 of murdering his wife Maggie and his son Paul at their family home. This was back in 2021. He was sentenced to life in prison and has continued to maintain his innocence. Let's take a listen now to what his defense said after he was sentenced.
What do you make about the judge's comments after the verdict that he agreed with the jurors?
Well, you know, I'm somebody that's prosecuted and defended a bunch of death penalty cases, and clearly you never do it in a circumstantial case. Because you're not 99 times out of 100, a jury's not going to sentence somebody to death without I saw him do it, he confessed, or, you know, great forensic evidence at the minimum. They had none of that here. And I think SWED needs to do some self-examination on the forensic processing. They did not. I mean, one of the things we complained about was that Maggie's phone would have had all her GPS data on it if they processed it within 5 days. And because they didn't, the GPS data got overridden. I mean, it was just one, which would have been helpful to Alec. It's fingerprints, footprints, and all kinds of forensic things that weren't done.
Can you expect an appeal anytime soon?
10 days we'll be filing an appeal.
The admission of all the financial crime evidence, and that was offered up, you know, as evidence of motive, that because he was confronted about one financial transaction involving attorney's fees by the chief accountant of the law firm, that was being offered as motive for why he would go home and kill his wife and son, which we thought was illogical and ludicrous.
It was about character. It wasn't about motive. He always wanted to take the stand, but once that information was in, I mean, he had to take the stand to explain the kennel video, the lie, if you will. He had to, but he had no credibility. His credibility had been stripped away by the financial misdeeds.
How was Buster doing, and why did he choose not to speak at the sentencing?
We could have had Mother Teresa up there speaking on behalf of Alec at sentencing. I mean, he was getting a double life sentence. That was expected. I mean, this is Judge Newman. He's a very stringent punisher when it comes to crimes and sentences. I mean, that was never in dispute. And so for Buster to get up and speak on his dad's behalf would not have made a difference. And why do you want to put that kid through more trauma than anybody that we, you know, can imagine has ever been through?
They won this case the day the judge bought into letting them put every piece of, you know, stealing from kids who lost their mother, from somebody with pancreatic cancer, somebody that's a paraplegic. I mean, all of that 2.5 weeks, by the time they got done with it, it didn't matter about final argument. It didn't matter about what we put up. They would never, ever, ever acquit him after that.
The South Carolina Supreme Court agreed to hear his appeal, which argues jurors heard improper evidence and that there was little physical proof tying him to the murders. The appeal also accuses former court clerk Becky Hill of improperly influencing jurors by pressuring them to reach a guilty verdict. Hill has denied those claims, but later pleaded guilty to obstruction of justice and perjury in a separate case. Oral arguments are scheduled for Wednesday morning at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. The court will then decide whether he gets a new trial or if his conviction stands. Let's go ahead and bring in our guest panel, Daryl Cohen, C.K. Hoffler, and David Gelman. Daryl, I'm going to start with you. Will he get a new trial?
It's a definite maybe. I think the fact that the clerk was convicted on separate charges is very important and plays a major part in whether or not her influence, if any, on the jury convinced them, or in the thoughts of the Supreme Court, convinced the jury, or at least partially convinced them to find him guilty. I would not be surprised if he did or if he did not get a new trial. I feel like the Ford commercial. If you do, if you can, or if you can't, I don't know. but he is a bad guy. He's done everything wrong that he could have done wrong, and he is a disgrace, not just disgraced, but a disgrace.
CK, you can't have a fair trial when you have these allegations of the court official coming in and possibly tampering with the jury, possibly influencing even one. Maybe made that person change their mind, maybe made him think or her think he is guilty after he took the stand and testified. You can't have that. That impacts a person's right to a fair trial.
I think that that's probably the strongest argument they could make. But as it relates to all the evidence and the jury weighing and looking at it, he took the stand. So the jury looked at the evidence, looked at him, made a determination, and found him guilty, guilty, and more guilty. I think that the clerk, which she did or didn't do, that was probably improper on some level, but I don't think it would have impacted the outcome. So if he is granted a new trial, I think the outcome will be the same or more severe, if at all possible.
David, what do you think?
He's not getting a new trial. Well, let's just be honest here. He is not getting a new trial. There's a reason for this. Number one, the evidence is pretty damn clear. Now, look, it's circumstantial, yes, but how many times are you going to get an actual evidence showing an individual shooting and killing an individual? Not very often. So, of course, it's circumstantial evidence, and the defense attorneys, they know that, but they had to posture to the press. But number two, this Miss Hill, look, what she did, improper at most, but she has denied that she did this. There's been an investigation. Nothing's really come of it. He is not going to get a new trial. Now, is he appealing this to get one? Obviously he is. And why is he doing it? Because he has nothing to lose. What's going to happen if they say no? Okay, he's in the same spot as he started at. So I'd do the same thing if I was him in his shoes. But at the end of the day, the Supreme Court, I guarantee you, they're going to look all over this. They're going to see it, and they're going to say, Alex Murdaugh, see it in the next light.
David, you know that Becky Hill, she was never charged with jury tampering. If she would have been, that definitely would have bolstered his appeal, I think.
100%, Kelly, 100%, but she wasn't. So, in my opinion, they did their investigation. The prosecutor's office did it. They found nothing. And so, at the end of the day, he's not going to get one. But if she had something, I agree. Yeah, there would probably be a much better case for him to get a new trial. But it's not going to happen.
Daryl?
He may or may not get a new trial, but David, she wasn't convicted of what she was convicted of because she was a good person. She is now a convicted felon, and she, according to some of the evidence, was some sort of an influence on the jury. I'll say this, if he gets a new trial, I would suspect that the next case would be more streamlined, and I believe the verdict would be exactly the same.
Yeah, CK, definitely.
Or worse. I mean, or worse, if it could be worse. He's going down either way. This little reprieve and trying to find the clerk who did this and did that, yes, she acted improperly, but
yes.
but let's talk about his conduct, his misconduct. He took the stand. And so the jurors convicted him as well they should have, because the evidence pointed to his guilt 100 times over.
Daryl, so this is going to be oral arguments tomorrow. Each side is going to get their say, making their arguments to the justices. Murdaugh, he's not going to be there. He won't be there for this. What do you think the prosecutors their strongest argument will be? Well, he received a fair trial.
He received a fair trial. The jury heard all of the evidence. In fact, the jury heard from him as he testified under oath. And as a result of that, the jury convicted him. Now, they're going to have to, in my view, address the former clerk. And they may address it and say, she may have said something, she shouldn't have said anything, but it made no difference.
Yeah, definitely going to downplay it.
Yeah, but they've got to mention it, because if they don't, it's the elephant in the room that everybody says, what about that? So I think he will not get a new trial, but if he does, I'm not concerned.
CK, how would you handle that? How would you handle that? Downplaying what she may or may have not have done.
I would go straight with it, and I would look at the appellate court, and I would say, look, we know this is the elephant in the room. And I would begin by dismantling how that could have had any impact, really, ultimately on the jury and on the final outcome. But what was more persuasive was his own testimony. and the evidence. And that's what they ruled on. Should she have done that? No. If it happened, and what happened, we'll never know. I would not try to downplay it too much. I would confront it head on and let them know we are not afraid of this. Despite, even if she did that, the outcome would have been the same because the jurors sat and they looked at the evidence and they made a determination. And the most compelling evidence was probably his testimony.
Why don't we play this little clip from Becky?
There's just no credibility.
No credibility. Let's play this little clip. I believe we have something from Becky Hill here, which she spoke sometime. Let's play it.
And so after much reflection, I have decided that it is best not to run again for re-election. I will now be able to focus on being a wife, a mother, and grandmother to my 2 grandboys, and will be spending time with the people who mean the most to me.
Well, okay. Well, that was no surprise. She should not run. That would be a huge mistake.
I wonder why she didn't run. Because she was about to be convicted. But let me say, I disagree with CK a little bit.
Let's hear it, Daryl.
I think that less is more. I would address her alleged communication with the jury slightly and move on. The more you bring out, the more
I wasn't saying you bring out everything. I would just say address it head on. Don't try to be cute about it. Just address it. And yes, move on. I wasn't saying they should have a diatribe and evidence and all this. No. But I'm saying don't go around the mulberry bush.
All they gotta do
it.
is just talk about it real quick, and then talk about the evidence, talk about the credibility and the lack thereof. That's all they got to do, and it's a winning argument. They're going to win. They don't have to go over themselves to do this. This is not very difficult, people.
Yeah, so, David,
unless they try to hide it.
Unless they try to hide it.
And act like it didn't happen.
That would be dumber than dumb. It's dumb and dumber, and this is dumbest.
Dumbest. Yeah, I agree.